Afternoon, everyone. It's Graham Coath. The best part of the week is Friday afternoon. You should be thinking about clocking off sometime soon. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to George here from Black Rose Burning. But first, this. I need to get going, Mel. See you later. George Grant, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to be with me today. What time is it for you, sir?
It's about 10:45, going on 11 a.m.
Nice.
About to be. We're going to get hit with a big storm tonight. So.
Oh no!
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, big one. They say 12 inches, maybe.
12 inches
of snow.
12 inches of snow.
It's a possibility.
Not 12 inches of vinyl. That would be better, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question.
Not 12 inches of vinyl. That would be better, wouldn't it? Okay. Oh, we've got a little bit of comeback there in the background. So tell me, when did music start in your life, sir?
Well, I'd say, I was always loved music. When I was a kid, I listened to a lot of 70s, what they call 70s gold. I was a big AM Kid fan with my little radio.
Yeah.
And I think the first single I ever bought was two I bought at the same time. Someone Saved My Life Tonight and Midnight Train to Georgia, I think were the first two.
Oh,
7 inches.
You had taste back then. How old were you then?
My parents had taste.
Oh, and you just followed your parents, right?
Well, initially, yeah, but my first big experience was seeing Kiss live at about 14.
Yeah.
When I saw Gene Simmons, I was like, that's what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you try and do the whole tongue thing for a while?
Oh, absolutely. Still do. Still do.
Oh, there you go. And did that influence you in terms of what instrument you would gravitate to as well?
I started playing guitar initially. And, there was bands in my neighborhood, just like any working class neighborhood. There's a million bands because there's a million kids. Everybody played guitar.
Yeah.
And some played much better than I did. There was one drummer and no bass players. So I decided, all right, there's no bass players. I could play in a lot of bands if I took up bass. So that's how that happened. So that became my first instrument.
Yeah, well, and there you go, Gene Simmons as well. You saw that there. Well, what is it about bass guitar for you that makes it so special?
Over the years, I just you have to have a certain mentality to play a bass. I mean, it's not, for the most part, it's not a showy instrument. It's a team instrument, and a lot of guitar players think they can play bass, but it takes a special little niche in your brain to play bass. I think that's what attracts me to it. Like, it's not a forefront instrument. It's a backbone instrument.
Yeah, as someone that started off as a singer, and then learned to play guitar and bass kind of at the same time. I always enjoyed picking up a bass because it helped with the guitar. If that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. It's foundationally more rhythmic than it is anything, and that it helps. It helps a guitar player who understands the concept of bass.
Yeah, but also from a physical point of view, you have to stretch a little bit more on a bass,
and you have to push a little harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so that if you want to get this working properly, play a bass.
Yeah.
It just works. And then do you find, actually, are you the kind of guitarist when you now pick up a guitar as opposed to a bass guitar, well, they're both guitars, but a 6-string guitar, as it were, do you find yourself trying to create great chords with as much of a stretch as possible, or not? Or does something of your bass playing go into your guitar?
I think that's more the case. When I play guitar now, it's like I have to readjust my mindset to not move. I have to move a completely different way. So I'm used to like just stepping on it, and I can't really do the same thing with guitar. It's like I have to be a little more delicate. So I'm not the
Yeah.
greatest guitar player in the world, but I do like to play guitar, and I do like to experiment with guitar. I'd say even more so.
So you had a great start in terms of obviously your parents listened to some great music, and
Motown,
that
Motown, Stax. They,
acts.
they, they were right in that era.
Yeah, and that that's what a great place to start. I
Indeed,
started with
indeed.
Puff the Magic Dragon and Father Abraham in Smurfland. I'm not shy about telling people about it. That's my first records because my parents didn't listen to music.
Mm.
Or they listened to very few bits of music. There was the odd Nana Muscuri album.
Who I'm familiar with as well. But
Yeah,
that came much later.
an awful album of Beatles, Baccarat, and Beethoven done bossa nova, which I've talked about before on the show. Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds interesting.
It's
as an
interesting,
adult.
but
As
it's
an
awful.
adult.
It was really. It might be a great album to sample. Put it that way.
Right.
this Bon Tempi type organ playing all of these songs. But no, we didn't have a huge amount of music in the home to play, and it wasn't until I was little bit older and started hanging around with some friends that were into who were about 10 years older, and they were into things like Deep Purple and
Sure.
all of the classic rock bands and some prog bands like Yes or whatever. Then my mind was blown.
I love those bands. Yes is a big one for me actually.
Yeah, what, because of Chris Squire in particular?
I just thought the sound of the band was spectacular. I mean, epic songs, well played. I mean, it's Yes. I'd probably say my top 10 bands of all time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Roundabout as a bass part? Dum 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 dum.
Close to the edge, man. Close to the edge.
Yeah, it's absolutely. You hear that for the first time, you think, wow.
Absolutely. that was in my like probably 16 age era. I discovered those guys, and along with Rush, who is also I'm a big fan of still to this day. But I like that was from my like 16 to about I'd say about 20. That was my stuff.
Yeah, we've all tried to sing like Geddy Lee for 5 minutes and then realised we don't have jeans tight enough. So yeah, no, absolutely. So when was the moment though? When was the moment you thought, I'm actually going to make this my life? This is what I really want to do.
Like I said, that point where I saw Gene Simmons live, and I was a big Kiss fan then. Yeah, that was the definitive moment. I said that right there is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah,
ironically.
But what took that on from seeing Gene Simmons to actually making that happen for you?
I think in that same week, if I remember correctly, I started begging my parents for a guitar. Begging them. And finally, they conceded. They bought me an acoustic guitar, and I played that for a while. And I was like, this really isn't cutting it. So then I started begging for an electric guitar. Begging. So I got one for that at that following Christmas. And and that was it. I got that and a little silver tone amp.
Yeah.
Which I wish I had now because it's probably worth a lot of money.
Well, no, absolutely. And and what that would have been, what, sort of 10, 15 watts, something like that, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was 20 watts. It had like a gray, it was covered in like a gray vinyl with little black specks on it. It was wonderful, but I had no idea what I was doing or what I had. So I eventually destroyed it.
Yeah. So then did you then find a group of other people that were into the same thing as you?
I did. Like I said, there was a million bands in my neighborhood, but there was never any bass players or drummers. So I then switched to bass probably about a year and a half after I started playing guitar, and I played them both simultaneously for a while. and we played Sabbath covers, and your typical basement band, neighborhood basement band kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then finally, I auditioned with a guy who had a pretty well-known band. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I think when I was 16, I started playing in bars. I mean, in 2 short years, I was good enough to hold my own. So worked.
Did you ever drink in those bars at that age, or
No,
you just no?
no, it's illegal. You
Oh,
can't drink.
I know it's illegal.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I
No,
mean, no one's taping this. All right, it's fine.
no. And it was also like 50 years ago or something. So
Yeah.
but I actually had to carry a note with me from my father
Right.
with his number on it that said, if I ever got a hassle, I would show it to whoever was in charge, and they could actually call my father.
Oh, wow.
Crazy, right?
Wow. Yeah. Well,
And I saw some pretty wild stuff as like a 16-year-old kid in a bar
yeah,
playing
absolutely.
two sets or something.
Yeah, you didn't ever have like a Blues Brothers type experience where you had you were behind the
No,
sort of mesh and
no. The guy who ran this band, his name was Bobby Porter, rest in peace,
yeah.
was a spectacular performer. I mean, a lot of the way I perceive performance today is based on this guy because he was truly an amazing individual. Handstands on the bar while he's singing. Like the guy was, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal, and he was a wild guy. He was a really wild guy, but he could sing like nobody's business and perform. He was amazing. So I always, whenever anybody asks me, who are some of your influences that I wouldn't know, Bobby Porter from Pittsburgh is definitely one of the guys.
It's amazing. I mean, over the years, I've seen some amazing performers, and as you say, there are some great rock stars out there who have never, in the general mass of things, ever made it. So most people wouldn't know of them. But
Indeed.
there are some great performers out there.
I mean, there's nothing better than seeing a band that's truly really good, like to the level of fantastic, in a tiny bar, well, it used to be smoky. It's not smoky anymore.
No, yeah, that's true.
But in a tiny place, and it's super loud, and everything's just running perfectly. I just went to see a show by my friends called the Boot Blacks in Brooklyn, and I've seen them a few times before, and I have I have most of their stuff. And this one show, man, it was like everything was on 10. The place was small, it was loud, and like now I'm chasing the dragon to get that show out of them again. It was just like it brought me back to that. Wow, that people who you see on big stages, you can see on a small stage, and man, it's so much more intense to me. And it has to be loud, of course, and they were very loud, which made a big difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that, and I'm. It's the atmosphere of that, isn't it? And it's also just you feel like you're witnessing something that everybody else is missing out on.
That's exactly the way I felt. I mean, there was a good crowd, but like there was something special that night. Like it was throbbing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was electricity in the air. And when that happens, man, you got to love it.
Yeah. Because actually in this day and age, some of the big shows, the big shows, the stadium shows, etc. I mean, actually, they're not so special because they end up being filmed in really good high definition, multiple cameras. They end up, in a sort of 5 DVD set, etc. And people can see every single aspect and every, So even if you don't go there, or even if you did go there, you can watch it all again. The great thing about those gigs that you're talking about is that if you weren't there, you missed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love going around talking about it because I was there. And I can't even describe it probably as accurately as it was fantastic. You know what I mean?
No,
yeah, I love a great show.
That's tremendous. I remember going to see in Newcastle, Living Colour, doing a tiny little show, and they just smoked the place. It was absolutely fantastic. And you just thought that there, that's a great show.
Right,
You know,
right. You got to love it when that happens.
yeah,
It's magical. I swear it's magical.
it is. It is. So tell me about your where you are now. So how did you come back? Black Rose Burning. Where did that come from?
Well, I had that idea in my mind for a long time. Just this concept that I used to be a hothead, and it kind of just was this concept that floated around for a while. And I've been in quite a few bands. I'd say I'm an elder statesman of rock and roll. I've been around in a lot of bands, and finally, I just said, "Hey, I've had these ideas and these concepts, and let me just try to do something on my own. No masters, no sharing, no. Let me just sit down and write something on my own." I've developed myself as a singer probably over the past, I'd say, 12 years or so. I was a backup singer, but I was never really a lead singer. So I took the time to develop my voice a little, and as I was doing that, I did a soul record for fun in like 2014. It's like a combination. It's like rock and soul, but I wasn't quite there yet. And finally, after I left my last band or parted ways with them, I was just like, I can't be in a band. I have to write some stuff myself, get some of this stuff out. And that's where Black Rose Burning came. It's probably really a combination of all my different aspects of music that I truly love. There's a little bit of soul, there's a little bit of 80s, there's a little bit of synth, a little bit of goth, like it's a big mashup of a lot of things, but I think it's succinct as a sound. I think it has a sound.
I've been listening to it while I've been working today.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely love it. And I got my colleague to listen to it as well. I'm like, you got to listen to this.
Thank you.
And like even the way it starts, an anthem for the strange. What a great title, by the way.
Thank you.
You can tell me a little bit more about that in a minute. But I'm like, this is. I mean, there's elements in there that. I mean, I think your voice. You sound like. To me, you've got like elements almost of the Human League in your voice. That kind of. You've got a really nice deepness and richness to your voice. Which is lovely. That's in there, but you've got the kind of almost elements of the poppiness of the 80s in there, but then you were taking me back mentally as well to things like Sisters of Mercy and all of that, some of the Mission stuff as well.
Absolutely. All bands that I like, every single one you mentioned is a band that I like and have records by.
Yeah. So I mean, if people are going to listen to what we're doing is we're whetting the appetite now, right? for people to go and listen to this. I mean, where would you say people start with this album? You can't put a genre on this album at all.
Well, you would understand this. I wrote the albums I wrote. There was one before this, but this is probably a much further progression of the sound that I like to hear. And it's an album. It's like it's something that you have to listen from start to finish. It's not a story, but it's a body of work as opposed to like a single. And I think that just comes from the era of when I listened to a lot of music, and when I bought a lot of records, including vinyl. I would sit down with the album and listen from start to finish.
What? Thank you for saying that. We were actually we do a live show. Me and my business partner. We do a live show on the Friday morning every morning. We're in social media. That's what we do. And we got onto the topic of music and albums, and there was a whole part of that conversation where we were saying that so many people these days they listen to songs. And they actually just get to listen to songs. So I say, there are times when I just listen to songs, but I've never ever been someone that's just gone, I want to listen to that song again and again and again. I will either be, I'm quite okay with occasionally putting on on a streaming service or something, a greatest hits or not, a compilation album
Sure.
by different people, and just allowing that to be background. But if I'm actually listening to music, I want to listen to an album.
Absolutely.
And I want to listen to it from start to the end, and I want to be taken on the journey.
I mean, I think listening to singles is a much younger concept to me. Like that's probably not really for what I do. It's probably not even really the market of people who would listen to me. I mean, some people get it right away. They're like, "You made an album," and it's pretty obvious if you understand that era. I mean, I just didn't. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but as in a big picture, it's one.
It's one
body,
whole collective. Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. And we were saying that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that every song's got to flow into the next song. There's plenty of albums where that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Each song tails off and goes into the next song. It's if that album takes you somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's this album taking people to?
The internal workings of my brain, which is science fiction, and science fiction. No, there's like I say, love lost, love won.
Yeah.
And outer space.
Who did the cover for you? Because that's spectacular. I'm looking at that now. That's spectacular as well.
A friend of mine in Italy. I think she's in Rome. Eshmoon DM is her design company, and she does fantastic work.
Look at that.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Did you have a lot of input into that, or did
I when I was looking for artwork for the record, we've known each other, and I've always taken a look at her work, and when she's done new work, and I said, let me go back and look at some of her older work.
Yeah.
I went back, and I was like, this is perfect. And I went to her and I was like, I got to use this for my album cover. And she was like, I would love you to. So,
relationship way.
Relationship made. She'll probably always do the artwork for me from now on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You found yourself an album cover artist there that could rival the likes of your Yes type album covers, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think in the long run, having a consistent artist for my work that I really like as a person, that's a good thing too.
Yeah, because also it gets a bit awkward, I feel, when there's the and I'm sure you're the same, when you look at albums where it's a photo of the artist on the front. That ages it really quickly, doesn't it?
It's true. And, when you were a kid, you got this double album and you opened it up and there was artwork inside and you're like, you absorb it. Like in this day and age, you get a file that's this big that comes with your record or whatever. And people say, are you still making CDs? Well, of course I am. This is the only way I get to do art now. I can't afford to make vinyl yet, but when I will, this will be on vinyl as well. I enjoyed that so much as a kid, and I feel sorry for people who don't have it, who their music collection only exists as a file on a drive somewhere. It's just,
or not even that. It exists on a hockey puck.
Sure, it makes me feel bad because you're missing, at least a third of the experience of the music by looking at what the artist meant as his overall statement towards that album or record or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, look, and you're preaching to the converted. I'm a bit of a geek. I even love it when, people in albums tell you, facts like, we recorded this on this, and then, in the remastering we did that. I love all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a certain mentality, and I think it's also a certain age. That's what I grew up with. I would go and you browse the record store. I mean, the kids are coming back with it now. Like vinyl's probably bigger than it has been in 30 years and steadily getting bigger.
It is. It is.
And I think that's a great thing for music.
Yeah. Well, the great news for music is if you look at the figures for last year, music sales, full stop, or music consumption was up by 18%. So
Yeah, it's fantastic.
music's going up. Yes, still the biggest growth is in streamed music, but vinyl, massive increase still again from last year. CDs dropped again, but not as much as the previous year. So actually, it was a smaller decline, and still an increase in tapes. Believe it or not.
Kids are out here making cassettes. I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, wow, you're actually putting out a new cassette? Yeah, I am. I was like, this is amazing. But it's a good time. I think it's a good time for music right now.
Yeah,
I think it's a very good time.
I think so. I think people are getting back into the creativeness of it. I mean, look, you know, we've learned through this pandemic as well. We've learned that the human touch of everything is so important.
Sure.
Right. You know, when you take people away from other humans, yeah, and you distance them and you lock them in houses and you say you can't go out, you can't be out there, we suddenly realize what it means to be human. That's what I believe, and I think that's had a real impact on a lot of things. I mean, it's been devastating for the creative arts, because people haven't been able to go and see it, and
absolutely,
unfortunately, musicians were the first ones to suffer, which is another reason why I started this, because I started this in the middle of the pandemic, because it was like I suddenly got all of these musicians around the world. Actually, I had access to them, which was great, but also they weren't being able to play anything anywhere. You know, I did one of these with the Now Yes bass player Billy Sherwood.
Oh yes, I know. Of him. I don't know him. I know.
Well, there you go. So if you watch back through the catalogue, you'll find that one. And Billy, in that, bless him, said, "I would give my right arm to play anywhere right now," because that was right in the middle of the lockdown period. And I said, "What? Literally anywhere?" And he said, "Yeah, literally a cafe with one person in it." I would.
Yeah.
Because that's what it feels like.
Well, it was rough. You know, over the pandemic, I've released 2 records and a myriad of singles. Like, you know, I was working part of it, but, you know, at one part when it got really bad, I mean, I had nothing but time. And I was like, all right, this is the time for me to sit down and actually devote some serious and real time to my craft. Yeah. And that's basically what I did. And, you know, I was pretty bountiful so far, I think.
You have been more than bountiful, and it shows on this album, which we'll tell people how to get in a minute, because that's the important thing. For the future, is there? I mean, you've been doing music now for many years, but is there an ambition that you've left unfulfilled? Is there someone you would have loved to work with, or still could work with, that you haven't yet? Given the opportunity, if I could pick up the magic phone today and make that happen, who would it be?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of people I'd like to. There's a lot of people I'd like to work with.
Gene Simmons,
probably Geddy Lee.
Probably
Geddy Lee. That would, if I could work with anybody in the entire world and get tips and tricks, and it'd be Geddy Lee, because, you know, he holds a very special place in my heart as an artist, as a player, and Rush as a band. Like, you know, I'm a big Rush head. I mean, if there was no Cygnus X1, you know, that's my thing, man. Like, you know, that's where I got my first taste of science fiction in music. So
he'd probably tell you where to get rotisseries from to put on stage.
No, actually, or washing machines, or he'd tell me where you know, to get baseball memorabilia, because he's very into that, from what I understand.
I mean, how amazing was that when, you know, he suddenly goes, well, actually, I'm just going to DI into the system here with my bass, and you know, I don't need all these amps on stage anymore. I mean, that was quite something. But you suddenly got this space, haven't you? So you've got to fill it with something.
Yeah. And I think if I'm not correct, he was between endorsements as well.
Yeah.
For gear. So he was like, I don't do this for free, you know what I mean? And so I'm sure he just said, all right, I'm going to throw this up here instead.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely. It looks amazing.
Yeah, they had a sense of humor along with their, their big brains, and I appreciate that about them.
Yeah, and as a bass player, it must have been amazing to play alongside Pert as well.
And Alex Lifeson is an amazing guitar player. Such an underrated thinker on guitar. Like, he doesn't play conventionally at all, which is a big part of why Rush sounds the way they do. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the thing is about Alex, which is why perhaps he is underrated, is because he just makes it look easy.
Sometimes you don't even know he's there, but he's so there that he's there. You know what I mean? Like he has a certain texture. Like he's an amazing guitar player. I mean, I really enjoy that band a lot. I really enjoy them a lot. They incorporate synths. It's everything that I like about music.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, there we go. So we're tag Geddy Lee into the conversation afterwards and see if we can make that happen.
That would be awesome.
What, Geddy, if you're listening, George would like to do something. I mean, I know you've got a bit more time on your hands these days.
Anytime you're ready.
That would be great. Thanks, Geddy. We'll make that happen. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank
George.
you, Graham.
And
you as well.
Thank you for the music. Where do people get hold of it? Where's the best place for you, as far as you're concerned? I know
Bandcamp is probably the best place. Bandcamp is like the real deal. Like these guys actually care about music, and they're giving a lot of musicians opportunities to make money. And they have a once a month. They have a day where they don't take any fees.
Which is a Friday.
Which is this coming Friday. So yeah. Black Rose Burning at bandcamp.com. That's the place that's my preferred and probably the best place to get my music.
I agree. And hopefully at some point you're taking some of this live.
Come again? Yes. Actually, we have a gig next week in Boston, and then the following week, Boston at the Middle East. And then the next week at a new place in Nyack, New York called Prohibition River. We're going to do
That's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And the guy's really nice, Freddie, the guy who runs it. So, we're going to do 2 back-to-back, and slowly as the COVID thing goes down here, we're booking more and more stuff, and eventually, hopefully getting an agent. And then that's the one thing I won't have to deal with. Cool.
Well, hopefully, eventually we get to see you over in the UK.
I would love it. Martin Oldgoth would love it too.
Yeah. If you do the UK, the one thing you've got to promise me is you book at least one date in the Southwest, because that's where I am. Sometimes gets forgotten.
What is the city? Closest city?
The closest city would either be Exeter or Bristol. Bristol.
Okay. I know of Bristol, not Exeter, but I know of Bristol.
Yeah. Bristol's the one that most bands will go to.
Because
what a history Bristol has in terms of
music, absolutely.
Alternative music.
Yeah.
And that's why you want to go, as much as anything else, just to hang out where, Portishead came from, and Ronnie Size, and all of these great.
Right on.
Massive Attack.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. That's where it's all happening. Thank you so much for joining me, George. I'm going to have to get a hold of a copy of that CD myself. Although I've got it on digital to listen to, it's not quite the same. So I'm going to.
Don't worry, I got you covered.
Cool.
I'll get you covered, Graham, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Speak to you again sometime in our lives.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll see you in Bristol.
I want that to happen. We need a beer together in Bristol.
That would be awesome.
You're old enough now. You're allowed to have one.
That would be awesome.
Cheers, my friend. Bye for now. Bye.
Have a great night.
Bye.